Welcome to Stories on Stage, Sacramento. I'm Shelley Blanton Stroud, co-director along with Dorothy Rice. We're so proud to share tonight's performance of local writers' words read by local actors. We think you're going to love this, our final performance of 2020. Now I'll turn it over to my co-director, Dorothy Rice, who will introduce you to all of the performers and authors.
So first, Maia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maia Evrigenis. I'm so excited to be here. I wrote Just Another Day at School. I'm a writer and teacher. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Wonderful to have you. Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. My story is called The Coffin, and this will be a rare treat for me because I've heard my writing performed by actors before in an acting environment, but I've never heard a straight reading by someone else until tonight. Looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Pittman, and my story is called Dear Neighbor. And thanks for you all being here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks. Diane.
Hi, I'm Diane Kallas, and my story is called My Teeth Will Go On. It's not necessarily funny, though. I'm really grateful to Stories on Stage and to everyone here tonight, but especially to the actors, since then we don't have to do any reading. Thank you, actors.
And lastly, Elison.
Hi, everyone. Elison Alcovendaz. Hi, Mom. Hi, brother. Hi, wife. I think they're all on. So just want to say hi to all of you.
Wonderful. Great. Jessica.
Sure thing. Hello, I'm Jessica Laskey, the casting director, and I will just start by saying we're very happy to have these two actors with us. I will first introduce Atim Udoffia. If you want to say hi.
Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Atim Udoffia. I am an actor. I do some directing as well, and I also write, and super excited to be here with everybody tonight.
Wonderful. And then our second actor is Brennan Villados. If you want to say hi.
Hello, Brennan Villados. Thank you so much for having me, and really excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Wonderful. And with that, I'll turn it over to Atim, and we'll get the show started. And let's all mute ourselves.
Just another day at school. I sanitized my hands and set up for 7th grade English and language arts. The sweaty students return to the classroom from recess wearing their masks. They sit down at their freshly wiped down desks, spaced 3 to 6 feet apart throughout the classroom. I sit behind a plexiglass barrier, frantically organizing my desk. A kid holding a pencil comes to the front to ask me a question. What did you say, Brian? I asked through the plexiglass. What? He says. It's the same thing every day, 50 times a day. It's so hard to understand one another through our masks and this plexiglass barrier. Finally, he leans around the side of the barrier that separates us. Mrs. Evrigenis, can you sharpen my pencil? Of course. Anyone else? Pencils? I raise my voice, projecting through my mask. I spray sanitizer on the yellow number 2 pencils, sanitize my hands, wipe the pencils with a paper towel, and put them in the sharpener, which only I am allowed to use now. It's a ridiculous act to sanitize a pencil, but this is the world we live in. I do this out of fear that our school will get shut down. My breath collects in my mask as I stand there sharpening pencils, looking out onto a sea of masks, purple, pink, California flag masks, regular medical masks. My exhales are warm and grow stressed as air is trapped behind my mask and I breathe it back in. I walk through the spaced out rows returning pencils. My body tenses, my stomach sucks inward. I try to make myself as small as possible. I'm not supposed to walk through the classroom like this anymore. I get Zoom set up for the 7th grade at-home learners. Due to COVID-19, some kids have opted not to come back to school this year, but the Catholic Diocese requires that teachers still give them online instruction while simultaneously teaching in person. I set up the camera. The remote learners log on to Zoom. Their faces appear in little boxes on the screen. They sit in their living rooms, bedrooms, backyards. As I see their names logging on, I greet them. Hi, remote learners. I'm still setting up for class. I check my image on Zoom and click to presenter view so that my face is the largest. I look tired, but at least my pink mask matches my outfit. I write the list of today's tasks for 7th grade English and language arts. Free write, daily oral language, vocabulary, writing coach, Black Ships Before Troy. I turn the camera plugged into my laptop toward me. Okay, everyone, both here in class and on Zoom, we're going to start with a free write. Today's prompt is, what are 3 things that worry you? For the next 10 minutes, I sit in my chair and watch the masked group as they write. I read an incoming email that says I'm supposed to sanitize whatever ball the kids play with during break and lunch. Okay, who would like to share? I say, getting up from my desk and walking to the front of the class. A few hands go up. I pick James. We can't hear you, I tell him as he begins to talk. James raises his voice, struggling to project through his camouflage patterned face mask. I just wrote about one main thing, actually. I'm worried about the COVID-19 epidemic because you could die. I'm worried mostly because I'm worried about death. I don't know what's going to happen when I die, and it can happen at any time. At the same time, the idea of eternal life stresses me out because I don't know if I want life to go on forever and ever. I try to think of something wise to say. All I can come up with is, does anyone else feel like this? Half the hands in the room go up. I check Zoom. There's one new comment in the chat box from Sammy. I feel like that too. I teach the rest of the class. As I talk through my mask, forcefully projecting to reach all of the students' ears, spit gathers at the corners of my mouth. A hand goes up in the classroom. Can I take a mask break? Sure, I say, wishing I could ask for one too. The student gets up from her desk and leaves the classroom to stand outside for a moment, breathing in fresh air. The bell rings, but there's no movement in the classroom, no gathering up books or pushing back chairs. The kids don't switch classrooms anymore. When the next teacher arrives, I walk to the far end of the blacktop and rip off my mask. I breathe in fresh air and think about how crazy it is that I'm grateful for all of this, because I'd rather be here in the classroom than doing straight distance learning again. I go to the faculty room where all the other teachers are gathered, complaining. I grab a LaCroix from the fridge, complain a bit too, and walk to the sanitized jungle gym where first graders in masks play and run around on the blacktop and climb all over the monkey bars. These are COVID kids, a generation impacted for the rest of their lives, and all they want to do is play. When the end of day bell rings, we sanitize our hands and walk out to the parking lot to wait for the parents to loop around and retrieve their children. The teachers are exhausted as we open car doors for the kids over and over again like robots. 20 minutes later, the sea of masked kids has disappeared. Finally, the day is over. Finally, I can take my own mask off. I walk back to the classroom with the kindergarten teacher. She's still wearing her sparkly silver and black mask. How you doing? I ask her. She tells me about her students. She says that it's going okay, but everything's just so different this year. When the kids play house, sometimes they set up Zoom calls, she says.
All right, unmute yourselves. That was amazing. Oh,
Atim!
that was wonderful. I could see the students.
Atim, work it!
Ah, so good.
Awesome.
So good.
Yeah. Maya, Atim, anything
Oh my
you'd like
gosh,
to say?
I don't even know what to say. That was so cool. Autumn, you're amazing. Wow.
Oh, stop. No, thank you so much. It was great to be able to read the story and provide some sort of an insight, as to what teachers are dealing with, and especially those who are doing, are having to do in-class teaching and also Zoom teaching. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I think for me, and I talked about this in the interview on the Stories on Stage website, I just felt like, well, I think as writers, we always want to be understood, or there's a sense of like the creatives were looking to be understood. And this experience, I felt kind of alone. I know there are so many other teachers, but to be so seen, and like we just met on Zoom 5 minutes ago. And I feel like you completely just brought my experience to life, and we're like really feeling it. And thank you so much for bringing that to us. So thank you. Wow.
Of course. I do want to share that also I'm a teaching artist, and so I am teaching on Zoom as well.
Got it.
And it's horrifying. Like, it's horrific. I just can't, it is so hard to formulate any sort of a connection with the kids. It's really hard. So, so this is a round of applause to all teachers who are doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Wow. And some of my like fellow teachers are on here. So I just want to say thanks everybody for the support. It's so nice of you to be here. So
yeah.
Wow,
absolutely.
Autumn, amazing.
It was amazing. And Autumn and Maya, when you have a minute, look through the chat. There's some wonderful comments from folks pointing out how relatable, and the portrayal of the students, particularly the young man afraid of death, so touching. Yeah. And several moved to tears. Absolutely wonderful job. And when we put out the submission call for work inspired by this strange year, these are exactly the stories that we hope to receive. So thank you, Maya. Thank you, Atim. Moving on, we've got Kevin's story and Brennan Villados' performance.
Hello. This is The Coffin. Oh boy, where to even start? I never believed in curses before this year, which I'm sure many people could say. But how many of them can trace their shifting worldview back to a refrigerator? We only got the thing because Adam wanted a second career as a chef. A do-over, as he called it. He'd started small, exotic cookbooks, new kitchen doohickeys, produce delivered to the house by vans, before getting serious. I mean, really serious. The most dedicated I'd ever seen him before that was during the brainstorming period for his idea of an alternative Facebook where people would do short updates like every minute. Even the mention of Twitter afterwards raised his ire. Cooking school classes and that mother of a fridge ate up most of our last big tax refund. I'd wanted to go on vacation. One of those places where couples in the ads sit in wicker chairs right on the sand. There's nothing to do but relax and Corona. Instead, I got 2 unlucky delivery men muscle the beast into the garage at the end of last year. December 31st, to be exact. Afterwards, the guys and I just stood and stared at it. They wiped their brows with bandanas and shook their heads. Were they shaking their heads at the appliance? Or at the poor sap, me? Who knows? I always hated horizontal fridges. Too much like coffins. And now I lived with one. Maybe I knew from the start, on a molecular level, that this was an omen of things to come. Or more appropriately, a big Pandora's box sent back in time from 2020, just waiting to be opened and begin its parade of wonders. I'll skip to the punchline. Adam left me for someone he met at that very cooking school. Michael, with a K. I met the guy the night of their special 10-course graduation dinner this past February. Way back when strangers still dined next to each other. Not only did Michael shake my fingers instead of my hand, but you should have seen the way he worked his silverware, holding each utensil like it was made of sugar and might spontaneously crumble. I wouldn't have thought of him as Adam's type. Yeah, I'm about as far opposite end of the dude scale from that as you can get. Short of wearing camo and posting a profile picture that includes a rifle. The day Adam moved out for good, after all the yelling and pleading and promises, I went into work, even though we were all remote by then. I planned to hit McMurphy's pub afterwards, to give Adam enough time for clearing out. And McMurphy's always felt like being below deck on some old-time ship, all dim and wooden, so comforting. Of course, I neglected to factor in that it was shut down, so instead I settled for a park bench and a plastic bottle from the liquor store. No one in sight but me and some random ducks. Like I was the last human on Earth. If only. By the time the sun set and I'd hiked the 10 blocks home, I had to pee so bad my back teeth were floating. Speaking of, have you heard of the 2-word motto for drinking in 2020? Early and often. When I got home from the park, Adam and Michael were still there. They had a U-Haul backed in diagonally and were struggling to load the beast. Skinny little Adam, 130 pounds in a suit of armor. Skinny Michael, whose t-shirt and jeans both look ironed. Why hadn't Adam hired someone? Had word gotten out in the trucking community? Stay the hell away from that house. They have a fridge that might be filled with corpses. After an awkward wave salute gesture, I ran inside and stood over the toilet for what felt like 15 minutes. Looking down at the top of the tank, where Adam's little colored candles used to stand in a neat row. The towel rack was bare now. Brass toiletry shelf empty except for my Old Spice and shaving cream. And finally, the U-Haul grumbled to life outside. When I peeked out, the truck was gone. But Adam had left something behind. Yep, there it lay, like a space capsule had crashed in our driveway. A final middle finger from this year to me. I'm not proud of the 2 weeks that followed. I cashed out those vacation days after all, but since I couldn't actually go on vacation, I commenced on a bender of vodka, OJ, and all-day breakfast foods. I unplugged, or mostly unplugged, from social media. On top of everything else, election news was a bridge too far. I made it 10% through 20 different TV shows. I thought about writing a spy novel or starting a stamp collection. I thought of what seemed like clever metaphors for the fridge. Our future put on ice, the place where hopes and dreams are buried. That weren't so clever, after all. Adam's essence lingered in certain corners of the condo like a eucalyptus-scented ghost. Anyways. Wait, I just used that word, didn't I? Now I'm really ashamed. Anyway, the morning I finally put on my pants and took my empty bottles out to the garbage, the fridge was gone. Poof. Nothing in the driveway but bare concrete. Surely I would have been aware of someone taking it, right? Or somehow leaving on its own? Maybe somewhere out there the curse has landed on some other sucker. So, yeah. That's how my 2020 has been. Probably more than you wanted to hear on a first date. Especially a Zoom first date. At least your connection didn't freeze while I was talking. How about your year?
Unmute and thunderous applause. Oh my God, he was on a date. Oh. That ending. Oh my God.
Hilarious.
Oh my God. And we were all there for that awful date.
I was thinking the whole time, when I read it at first, it's like, it is true. So much drinking during the pandemic, but I don't have access to the online dating element. So that was such a delight.
Well, you do. Evan and Brennan, any thoughts?
Sure. I just wanted to say, short of turning this into a giant therapy session with 100 people, this piece resonated with me quite a bit with some of the coping mechanisms expressed into it. I felt a lot of empathy for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we've lost Kevin.
No, he's here. I was the coach who drew up the game plan. Brennan's the one who executed it, so I wanted to let the spotlight shine on him. Thank you, sir.
Well, how was it having your story read?
It's a unique experience. I'm glad I got to do it.
Yeah. It felt so real. I honestly thought I was in that Zoom call on that day.
Yes. Well, in a way, Dorothy, you were.
What are you saying? Anyway, thank you both. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So much fun. And with that, fun and yet, also obviously a lot of pathos there. We'll turn back to Atim with Deborah Pittman's story.
Dear neighbor, I'm sorry, but I can't join you for our morning constitutional. Since the start of this pandemic, we've walked together every day. I've enjoyed your conversation, wry sense of humor, and endless supply of quotes that always hit the mark. When week 2 hit, bringing the death of my sister's husband, rapidly followed by the death of my best friend's wife, and depression weighed me down like a sack of dead puppies, our time together helped me get up every morning. Today, the death of George Floyd has hit me like a sledgehammer. It's one more tragedy in a string of long, horrific events. That string is choking me. I know it's not just about me. My ancestors lived through worse. Wait a minute, many of them didn't actually make it through their trials alive. I can't join you today or anytime soon, and it is so hard to explain why without bringing up the bitter taste of bile that I've pushed down for so long. Why has this one heartless death brought me to my knees? Is it because it comes in the midst of all that COVID-19 has already delivered to our doorsteps? Solitude, sickness, layoffs, unemployment, mental health issues, death, all of it hitting friends and family in rapid fire succession? Is it because more and more people are ditching masks and social distancing and becoming angry and violent if I dare demand, step back and cover your face? Is it because I have amazing nephews, beautiful young men who rose to high places in their chosen fields and who make us so proud despite all of the forces that sought to pull them down? Is it because despite these young men's accomplishments, it only takes one disgruntled Joe, one bullet, one angry white man who blames them for his own failure to end their bright futures? Is it because of my fear for the next generation, my adopted grandchildren, and all of the grandnephews and nieces? They watch the news with furrowed brows. They ask me why so many view them through a lens of hate and fear, people who don't even know them. Is it because I'd hoped this new generation could have lived a little while longer in childhood's innocence before inheriting the survival manual we must give our Black and brown youth? Is it because of my decision not to have kids? My fear that if I had a son, how would I protect him? Is it because when I asked a policeman for directions outside a 7-Eleven in Pleasanton, he drew his gun on me? Is it because of the white men and boys I've dated and simultaneously had to educate? One argued with me about the book, The Color Purple, firmly stating in the false righteousness of his privilege, it was so unrealistic. Black people didn't own land back then. This summer, I was hired to give Zoom presentations on a variety of Black subjects. How is it that I'm suddenly the expert? My degrees are in music. There was a Zoom presentation for budding psychotherapists during which I shared some of the many problems I've experienced dealing with the medical system, especially while trying to seek therapy. I was warned by the therapist who booked me for the event that her supervisor was nervous about the talk and wanted to cancel it. The supervisor attended the presentation, perhaps to keep an eye on the proceedings. To infuse a little levity into the talk, I told them about how I could never get any respect when car shopping. So I'd adopted a new credo: take a white man with you. In telling it, I realized that I'd had to do this so often, it wasn't funny anymore. It was an emotional reveal for me. And although I'd gotten used to the audience participant disconnect when presenting on platforms such as Zoom, it was disconcerting not to hear any reaction. Chuckles, murmurs of agreement or disagreement, even body language helps a presenter connect with the audience on a different level. Unfortunately, many of the audience members had their cameras off. When thanking me at the end, the supervisor, who'd had concerns about my presentation, erupted into sobs. It was a presentation that I wasn't sure I could make it through without tears, and yet she was the one who was crying. I never even got a chance to see her face. She had her camera off as well. Yesterday, I received an invitation from the department I retired from 7 years ago to speak at a convocation ceremony. Why now? Why not the year I retired? I haven't changed. I haven't transformed into a specialist in issues of equity and inclusion. For the past several months, I have received offer after offer to join local boards. I remember applying to be an artist at a local gallery. At the time, I was informed that I didn't quite fit their vision, but now, a year later, it's Can you join our board and help us figure out how to better serve the community? No! Dear neighbor, so often during our walks, you turn the discussion to current events. You express your indignation at the state of affairs in our country and about the upcoming election. You hope to see forgiveness in my eyes. You want me to tell you that you are a good person, that you are exempt from joining the protests because, as you say, you paid your dues back in the 60s. You want me to tell you that everything will be fine. At a point in history when it has never been easier to research and find information on virtually any topic under the sun, you ask me, what should I read? How can I educate myself? Why can't I join you on your morning walk? Is it because I'm exhausted and drowning under the weight of it all? Is it because I've been an armchair activist all my life and now is the time to act? And I can't have the distraction of pretending that all is well. I am sorry that I can't walk with you today. I can't discuss current events. I can't recommend a reading list. I can't educate you. I can't absolve you. Use your white privilege to help, please. I have a long fuse, but its burning tip is coming closer every day.
Wow. That was amazing.
Yes.
Whoa, powerful. Wow. Deborah, Atim, how was that?
I was crying, even though on some level I knew what was coming next. You just had me in tears, and I was hoping I could come and talk to you and thank you and not lose it, because the elevation of anger and annoyance was perfect. So thank you very much. Bravo.
Wow, thank you for putting it was so helpful to read your interview that you did with Sue Statz, which everybody should read, by the way. The interviews, all of them are really great, but yours in particular really struck me because of the real life situation that sparked this. And I'm like, really? I mean, so now that's a teaser. Now you got to go read it, everybody. But yeah, I was getting. I mean, there's a lot in here that I relate to on all sides. So it felt very. It was cathartic. I mean, I kind of want to do it again just because now I'm so worked up. But anyway, thank you for putting this piece out there.
Thank you very much.
The ramp up of emotion was amazing, Atim. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a comment. Oh, thank you, Maia. In the chat, we have been unable to paste stuff. So you can find all of the stories on stage, information, bios, and the blog where all the interviews are posted. It's just storiesonstagesacramento.org, and the interviews are on the blog. So the most recent one is with the two actors. Just to go backwards, and the last two are with all of our wonderful authors. So they're all there. And as Atim said, in Deborah's in particular, the story continues. So
Jessica was just able to put the link in the chat too.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's there now.
So the link's in the chat, but anytime, what do they call that? Mark it so you can find it. Storiesonstagesacramento.org. It's not hard to find. That was amazing. Yeah, I'm exhausted. Next up, we have Atim again, shifting gears for Diane Kallas's story. We're putting you through your paces here. Do you need a minute?
It's okay, I got it. Okay. The month the pandemic hit, my life goal downshifted from hanging paintings in an art gallery to predeceasing my own teeth. The days became as ritualistic and tedious as a Catholic Mass, with the woman who was still my wife as priest and I, her altar boy. Everything from what we ate to what we wore to what we said became as predictable and ordered as the periodic table of the elements, an analogy I chose because Susan is now a furloughed high school chemistry teacher in what she calls her real life. At breakfast, we wear robes of snagged terry cloth, eat toasted poppy seed bagels spread with something I absolutely do not believe is butter, and talk about our 3 essentials for the day: what errand to run, what to cook for dinner, and what to watch on TV that evening. When we don't have an errand, we manufacture one. This summer, we were forced into thrice weekly car wash trips just to have somewhere socially isolated to go. Susan, during the slosh and foam of the wash, lectured me on the universal solvent property of water. I listened with an eighth of an ear and a sliver of my brain, thinking instead of our children, who I had been assigned decades earlier to lure into nightly bathtubs with Mr. Bubble, and how Susan blamed me for the rashes behind their knees and in the crook of their elbows that bloomed nightly. Turned out, Mr. Bubble was too acidic or too basic for young skin. I can't remember which. I do remember that Susan, AKA the Mr. Bubble supplier, never apologized for blaming me. Our overwashed car developed a rash of flaking paint, infuriating Susan. As she searched for a way to blame me, I reassured her that the car would survive us, even if its dermatological issues turned into car clear coat cancer. Even before COVID, we only saw the children once a year. Then, one fall day, during our demanding post-bagel morning of teeth brushing and vitamin popping, a baby squirrel fell down our fireplace while Susan was finishing the newspaper's daily crossword puzzle. When I heard Susan scream, I thought it was puzzle related. Sometimes the Thursday puzzle sends her over the edge. The sudden appearance of the squirrel and perhaps her realization that I hadn't closed the flue last winter after our annual Christmas fire had caused her to shriek. When I bolted into the living room, Susan turned, nostrils flared in panic, and said to me for the first time in that empty year, "What do we do?" I had, of course, no idea, but the internet had lots of ideas. In fact, as I typed in baby squirrel, it immediately suggested baby squirrel fell out of tree, and I went with that. There was some minor Susan squabbling about the authoritativeness of a post written by a journalist rather than a squirrel scientist, but when facts started rolling off my tongue like boxes off an assembly line, she calmed. First fact. If the baby is pink, fat, round, and warm, and squirms when touched, allow at least 2 hours for his mother to find him again. We abandoned our schedule to sit together on the hearth, willing that baby to stay warm and squirmy, keeping it breathing with the force of our need. We marveled at its tiny sesame seed claws and tightly closed eyes, its mere promise of a fluffy tail. We talked about bringing in the old cat tree in from the garage when it was a little bit bigger. We considered a raft of human child names, settling on Ambrose or Martin for a boy, Generva for a girl. I think we even held hands. When my cell phone alarm warbled at 2 hours, we sprang into action, ignoring the words "at least." Susan began making a heating pad and shredding newspaper and a shredded newspaper nest, as per the journalist squirrel advisor, while I rushed to the store for whipping cream and syringes. Out of the corner of my mind, I noticed that Susan had shredded today's newspaper without finishing the crossword, and that I was rushing to the nearby Walmart without my usual political concerns. We were transformed. I was alive. As I sped through the Walmart aisles, I grabbed a bottle of celebratory cupcake-flavored vodka and the party-sized package of peanut M&Ms. When I snagged the baby's whipping cream, I also tossed in a block of real butter into my cart. And searching for the Pedialyte, I passed and picked up a couple of steaks. I've been curbside pickup shopping for months. This felt like a gondola ride in Venice. The syringes were near an end cap displaying birth control, which we didn't need, but it made me smile. At checkout, I had 3 grocery bags of contraband and a 6-pack of craft beer. At home, I found Susan weeping. Her squirrel feeding schedule so tear-soaked that the paper had re-expanded into cotton fibers. The mama squirrel had returned, well past her 2-hour limit. Her words, less accusation, more lamentation. In the kitchen, the newly bought ice cream wept onto the counter. I felt tears salt the back of my throat. I knew better than to point out that now our baby squirrel would live, thrive, even become a mama or daddy squirrel one day. I wished we'd taken a few photos of the squirrel while it had been ours to show the kids at Christmas, framed on the mantle behind the evergreen swag labeled Ambrose the Squirrel. I rejected the notion of suggesting we adopt a pandemic puppy. Instead, I lowered myself onto the hearth, not even noticing how my knees popped and complained, and gathered Susan in my arms. She burrowed into my chest, her gray hair sticking to my dry lips, her sobs receding like the tide. Weak sunlight pooling around our awkward, pudgy pietà. We sat like that for hours, my strong heart pounding against her tear-swollen face, my teeth clenched, preventing my own sobs from pouring out.
Wow. Yeah. The movingness of small things, huh?
I know.
Wonderful word, movingness, sorry. Wonderful performance again, Atim. Thank you, and wonderful story, Diane. Hearing it again after reading it a couple times, really great. Yeah. Thoughts, Diane, Atim?
Oh, it's just always so wonderful to hear somebody who can really read, really put the emotion in that you thought was there, but were never sure were there. So thank you so much, Atim.
Yes, of course. I love the story so much. It just, I love all the subtext in there. Always looking for the subtext and all the images. It's just, it really takes us on the journey with this. Well, I say with just the one character, but it's really with both of them. I really feel like this is it's a love story. I think, a view into this relationship and kind of like that, having that thing. That breaks up the ritual, the routine, that brings the life and the energy back into the relationship. Even for a little while. So anyway, I loved it. So thank you for letting me read, bring it to even more life. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You hit it, Atim, with the word subtext. And as Shelley says in the chat, sometimes a squirrel is not just a squirrel.
Right.
That was kind of true for the whole story.
Yeah.
Subtext abounded. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful performance, beautiful story. And our last story of the evening, we're going back to Brennan for Elison's story.
Hello again. This is #GirlDad. When the news broke about Kobe Bryant's death, I was sitting at the Lego table with my 3-year-old daughter, Emmy. My phone was on the windowsill above the table, and though I heard it ping, though I saw it light up, it wasn't until the text messages started flowing in rapid succession that I grabbed my phone and read the news. By then, news outlets had confirmed that his daughter, Gianna, had died in the crash as well. I wondered about the moments before the crash. Did Kobe know what was happening? Did he unbuckle his seatbelt so we could hold Gianna and tell her things would be okay? Papa, Emmy said, where's Minnie Mouse? We searched the bins for the Lego Minnie Mouse, Emmy tossing little bricks everywhere. I thought about the car accident we'd been in 2 years prior. On the way back from Christmas shopping, someone clipped our rear bumper on the freeway. We spun across 3 lanes of holiday-busy interstate. Emmy and Patty, my wife, both screaming. Me trying to get control of the car as we skidded sideways towards the raised curb, the only thing between the freeway and the steep drop down the hill below. Somehow, we missed all the cars and burst through the curb straight on, which prevented the vehicle from flipping. Thanks to recent rains, keeping the ground thick and muddy, we glided to a safe stop halfway down the hillside. Found it, Emmy said, raising the Minnie Mouse proudly above her head. Since the accident, I have been obsessed with Emmy's physical safety. The visitors laugh at the rubber pads on the corners of our tables, cabinets, nightstands. I email our pediatrician more times than I'll admit to anyone. And I still wake up, often in the middle of the night, just to check the baby monitor, just to make sure she's still breathing, just to make sure she's still there. On New Year's Day 2020, I was giving Emmy a bath. Patty had walked in to drop some freshly laundered towels in a drawer, and I looked in her direction for a moment. And in my periphery, I saw Emmy stand and reach for a toy. And the next thing I knew, she had slipped and split her chin against the side of the bathtub. We rushed her to the ER, where they stitched her up. Emmy cried for the doctor to stop the entire time. Later in bed, long after she had gone to sleep, I looked over at Patty and said, well, good news is the year can only get better from here. I said the same thing to myself after Kobe and Gianna's deaths, but no longer repeated that refrain after George Floyd's murder and the subsequent protests, the Beirut explosion, West Coast fires, the deaths of Chadwick Boseman and RBG, the COVID pandemic, and all the hatred and punditry that happens every presidential election year. If 2020 has taught me anything, it's that no matter how much I try to protect Emmy, there will always be something out of my grasp. Natural disasters, disease, social media bullies, abusive men, murder hornets, and a million other things that I will never see coming. In the weeks after Kobe and Gianna passed, the internet was filled with stories about Kobe, his sexual assault case, his athletic exploits, and his unmatched competitive drive, but mostly about his relationship with Gianna. Those who knew him spoke about how much he loved being a father to his 4 daughters and how he shared a special connection with Gianna. Hashtag Girl Dad trended everywhere. All over the world, fathers shared photos and stories about how amazing their daughters were. I posted a poem on Instagram about being Emmy's father and included the Girl Dad hashtag. It remains one of the most widely shared and viewed things I've ever written. In the poem, I ask Emmy questions like, how can I teach you to be fearless when the world scares me? And if I kept you safe, would you hate me? I wonder if Emmy had been a son, would the questions be different? Is there truly something different about being a girl dad? Should there be? When I talk to my friends, they all admit that whether biological or the result of generations of gender normalizing, there's just something different about the relationships with their daughters, something simultaneously protective and vulnerable. Perhaps like other girl dads, the shield I put up isn't for Emmy at all. It's for me. Papa, Emmy said, help. Minnie sat atop a teetering stack of Legos, and Emmy was struggling to keep it from falling over. I knew what would happen if Legos scattered to the floor. For weeks, she had been in a tantrumy phase, emotionally overreacting to things like her cup being the wrong color. Maybe it was the photo of Gianna on my phone, but I couldn't move. Lego stack broke in half. Tears quickly appeared on Emmy's face. She looked up at me expectantly, as if she was saying, fix it. I wanted to tell her that there's no end to the fixing. You put out a fire, another one starts. You heal from one disease only to contract the next one. Sometimes it's rebuilding a shoddy stack of Legos. Another time it's figuring out how to move on when a teenager with a cell phone in his hands sends your entire family careening across the interstate. The point is, some days, sometimes, some years, feel like everything is in constant repair. But you keep fixing anyway. How about I help you? I said. Put down my phone, got down on one knee, and picked up the Legos with Emmy. Then we built a new stack. This one was stronger, sturdier, and Minnie atop it all, as unwavering as though she had already forgotten what falling felt like. We did it, Emmy said, smiling.
Thank you, Brennan.
Another emotional journey. Wow. Elison, Brennan, thoughts?
That was a pretty cool experience, Brennan. Thank you for doing that with such clarity. As writers, we don't really see the people who read our work usually, so it's nice to see it kind of visually happen. That was awesome. Thank you.
It was a great piece to read. I am not a parent myself, but I know what it means to care about someone and want to protect someone, and that it all really came through, and it was very resonant, to use that word again. So thank you.
Well, you acted a parent. That's for sure. Yeah, what a group of stories. Oh my God, I feel like the emotions, probably every describable one, it's been like a total journey. Each story is so different, and yet a different slice of a very unusual year, from 5 authors bringing us their piece, and the actors. So incredible. If folks have comments, questions, I know it's going to be real hard to see waving hands, so you can either put something in the chat and we can call on you, or unmute yourself if you want to say, or I think we've got so many screens worth of faces here.
I've got to jump in there and say, Elison, my sons are going to blame you for the series of texts they are going to receive tonight, inquiring as to their safety and their reasonableness and how much they love me.
Yeah.
So thank you, and I will let you know they thank you too.
So you're saying that never changes, is what you're saying.
That's
Got
right.
it.
Sorry, Elison. I had an office mate where when I had younger children, we were talking about this. She's like, yeah, one of my sons is a police officer. One is a firefighter. And I stay up late every night worrying about them. So yeah, you're not done, Elison.
Okay.
By a long shot. And authors and actors, please check out the chat. So many beautiful comments from audience members about tonight's stories and the performances, which really were incredible. What a way to end the year for Stories on Stage. This is our last performance of the year, and we are planning to take January off. I'll just roll into a few announcements and give time for people to think of questions or comments if you have them. As Shelley mentioned, we will return in February with a partnership with 916 Inc., bringing some youth actors and authors' stories to our virtual stage. I don't think we'll be in person then. And we plan a full year of programming again for 2021, and hopefully some more surprises and partnerships like we've been cultivating this year. One thing this evening has really shown us is the power and love and talent that exists right here in our community. And that's something we won't forget as Stories on Stage Sacramento. Probably our best attended. Of course, we had 5, but that was amazing. And for an update on the anthology, which these 5 wonderful stories will be part of the first Stories on Stage Sacramento anthology, titled 2020, but obviously won't come out until 2021. We will be selecting a number of other stories, some we already have, from all of the submissions we received. We need to put our heads together and figure out how tactically and financially to make this happen in a year that is difficult for nonprofits, but there will be an anthology. These great stories and others will be in it, and hopefully it'll be sometime in the first quarter of 2021. That's certainly our goal, to have it available for sale. And what else? I guess thank all of you, the audience, the actors, the authors, all the authors and actors we've had this year, for, as Shelley said, joining us on what has really been a year of discovery for several not so young women and one young woman, Jessica, to really learn a bunch of new skills, right, Sue and Shelley? You know, when this happened in March and we had to cancel a performance, we had no idea that we would have the full year that we've had. But we kind of bucked up and gave it a try, and it seemed to work, and the audience was there. So we really thank you for that, being with us on this learning journey. And that's all I have to say, I think. Shelley, Sue, Jessica?
I have something brief, and I will say that one of the great, I've always, from an outside position as an audience member, always loved Stories on Stage. It was like a meaningful thing. It was my thing to go to and to appreciate. But in this particular year, the growth that's happened for me is to learn not just about the meaning of the words, because the words have always been there for me, the stories. The acting, it is slaying me. I'm crying right now to see people bring it to life in a different way, that I can own it as a story I read, and then I can share it with all of you in the experience of seeing it performed. It's magic to me. So thank you, all of you, for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we loved these stories when we read them. Obviously, we picked them. But hearing them performed, it's like it confirmed and amplified, like, oh yeah, this is an amazing work of art, and meant for performance. So thank you, actors. Thank you, authors. Yeah, Sue.
I'm kind of stunned, and I think this is sort of going off of what Dorothy was saying, but it is astonishing to me the variety of talent and amount of writing that's being done in this area. We had so many pieces, and we would read them and say, "Oh my God, this is so good!" And when we tried to select the ones because we could only accommodate 5 at this reading, it was so hard. We're discussing and creating criteria on the fly, and there's so many. And when you see the anthology, you will understand just how hard a decision it was to only have 5 to be read tonight. So I'm looking forward to working with Dorothy and Shelley, who have just created this miracle out of this amazingly horrible year, and created a whole new way of having an event and having a lot of people take part in an event. So I'm looking forward to the anthology and all the new programming that's happening this coming year, and also to talking to all the writers. So thank you. Thanks to all of your writers this evening for spending time both answering questions and then answering new questions when I had follow-up. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and folks, do go to the blog and read Sue's interviews. Atim, is that your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted. Sorry. Just a second. Sorry about that. I just want to say that it's really to the credit of Stories on Stage and the longevity in the community, as well as the pieces of the community that all of these writers, because all these writers have brought their peats, to participate in tonight's event. So it's really cool. I think that it's been a really difficult thing to transition live performances onto this platform. Like, just coming from theater and seeing how things have transitioned more, or with some more success and some with less success. And so this is one of the first things that I personally have participated in, where it still kind of feels like, oh, we're all in this room together, and which is really astounding. So that is, it's super cool. So I'm pretty sure, I think this is my first time reading for Stories on Stage. I've read for Stories on Stage Davis before. So again, I just want to say, put my arms around everybody and say thanks for the opportunity. Hello, and thank you to all of you. And this was, it's such a great way to end off the year. So super cool. Yay writers. Again, I'm looking forward to the anthology, to see all the ones that didn't make it into this evening, but are still, great stories that are going to be out there for us all to see.
Yeah, and yay Jessica for the amazing casting this evening and all year.
I was going to say, because Atim was saying thank you to the writers, I just wanted to say the acting talent that we have in Sacramento is so deep, and it's so good, and it's so fun for me to get to hire people that I've worked with, that I've not worked with, because there are so many good actors doing things in Sacramento, the environs of Sacramento. And so to get to sort of extend, because none of us can play with each other right now in person. So to get to be able to do this still in sort of, like Atim was saying, with that energy, Stories on Stage Sacramento has managed to capture that energy, because I've been part of other virtual things during this weird time. And Stories on Stage somehow has managed to capture that energy of being in a group of people, where people you see their little faces, or you only see your one giant face when you're the speaker. And it just has managed to keep that connection. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat, this sort of communally connected, like Shelley said, it's a really interesting, cool thing that we're getting to do. And I think the writers are obviously a huge part of that, but I think the performers that have been part of this season have really made that possible, because they've been able to connect through Zoom, but still show us their talent. So I'm just eternally grateful to all of them for their work.
Absolutely.
Jessica,
Absolutely.
you have been brilliant at corralling that talent. Really.
Oh, thanks. There's a lot to pick from. It's good. It makes my job easy.
I think there was something about, I mean, I think you forgot to mention just the crying that is communal. The crying, the shared crying with people you know and don't know. Very communal, very Sacramento.
Oh, well, thank you everyone so much. And I'm sure you're anxious to get to your dinner or whatever your activities are. We hope you'll stick with us, be back in 2021. We wish you a wonderful end of the year and better luck next year. Yeah, we love you guys. Appreciate your support. Good night.